I never imagined that the hardest part of my marriage wouldn't be adjusting to my husband, but fighting for space, almost every single day, with his family. When I first walked into this house as a new bride, I carried hope in my heart. I thought time would smooth everything out, that love and patience would help me find my place. But with every passing day, I realized something painfully clear: I wasn't welcomed as a part of the family. I was treated like an outsider expected to serve, to please, to obey, but never to belong. The first month after the wedding felt deceptively peaceful. Everyone was sweet, overly polite even, and I mistook that politeness for affection. But as soon as the glow of the ceremony faded and life returned to its routine, their real faces began to show. My husband Hamza is a good man, or at least, I want to believe he is. But when he's around his family, he turns into a shadow of himself, silently agreeing with whatever they say. His mother's favorite line is, "Hamza is our son first, then your husband." And I feel like just an object he brought home, not a partner. Every morning I'm expected to wake up before everyone else. Even on days when my body aches, even when sleep barely touched my eyes, I have to be the one to prepare tea, breakfast, and start cleaning the house. If I'm even a minute late, his mother sighs loudly and says, "Our daughter-in-law doesn't know how to run a home." In our time, and that phrase, "in our time," cuts me like a knife every single morning. One day I woke up with a pounding headache. I could barely stand, but I still dragged myself to the kitchen. Breakfast was a bit late. His mother didn't even let me explain before saying, "If she can't do it, we should call our daughter. At least she knows how to manage a home." That sentence stabbed right into my chest. I swallowed my tears because crying in this house only earns more taunts. If I cry, they say, "She's doing drama to control our son." Hamza heard it all, but like always, he stayed silent. His silence hurts me more than their words. He says, "You need to understand my mom. She's old." But how long do I keep understanding? Am I the only one meant to bend? Things got worse the day his sister Ariba started visiting more often. She loved commenting on everything: my clothes, my cooking, the speed of my work. "Why are you so slow? Do you get tired from such little work? Maybe you were used to roaming outside instead of managing a house." I went to the kitchen and cried quietly that day. I didn't understand why I was being judged constantly. All I wanted was a normal life, a home where I was respected, where my efforts mattered. But here, every day felt like a new battle I hadn't signed up for. Hamza's behavior slowly became my biggest burden. I loved him, but his constant silence, his helplessness, his refusal to stand up for me, it broke something inside me. When I tried to tell him about his mother's behavior, he always said, "You make things a big deal." What he calls small remarks feel like deep wounds to me. One evening things reached a point I wasn't prepared for. His mother had guests over. In front of everyone, she said, "Our daughter-in-law doesn't know anything. Hamza is managing everything." Everyone laughed politely. I sat there, fixed in place, feeling like the ground should swallow me. My hands were cold, my heart was burning, but my lips didn't move. I stayed silent. For the last time. That night I confronted Hamza. "Do you think what your mother said was true? Do you think I am incapable?" Like always, he avoided the question. "Why do you take everything to heart? She didn't mean it. She's old. Let it go." I didn't sleep a single minute that night. I stared at the ceiling and wondered, if I kept living like this, how long before I lost myself completely? How long before my silence consumed me? The next day was even worse. Ariba came again, sat comfortably in the living room, and said, "Bobby, Mom said you don't respect her. Why are you behaving so badly these days?" I didn't even know what to say. I hadn't disrespected anyone. I barely even spoke in that house. But somehow I was always the villain. My chest tightened with anger. My hands trembled. And for the first time, I raised my voice, not to shout, but to finally be heard. I do respect her. But respect is a two-way street. I do everything for this family. Does anyone see my effort? My tiredness? My feelings? Ariba just smirked and said, "You're too sensitive. Women need to be strong." Her words shattered something inside me. I was already exhausted, already breaking, but still I was expected to be strong. Strong enough to handle insults, strong enough to swallow pain, strong enough to stay quiet. That night I made a decision. If I kept enduring everything, I would slowly lose who I was. I needed to stand up, for myself. Not loudly, not violently, but firmly. Quiet strength. The strength to not disappear. But the real challenge wasn't the family. It was Hamza. That night he sat beside me and said, "I can't handle this. You and Mom always fight. It's affecting me mentally." His words pierced me deeper than anything his family had ever said. "Fight?" I asked. "Is this a fight? Or the disrespect I face every single day?" He sighed and said, "Maybe you're overreacting." And that was the moment, the exact moment. I realized that the biggest battle I had wasn't with his mother or sister, it was with Hamza's silence. His silence that stood between us like a wall. His silence that made me invisible. His silence that broke me a little more every day. But I wasn't going to break anymore. Not now. Not ever again. The next morning, something felt different inside me. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was anger, or maybe it was the small part of me that was finally waking up after being buried for months. I went through my usual routine, woke up early, prepared breakfast, cleaned the kitchen, but I wasn't doing it out of fear or pressure. I was doing it to see clearly what was happening around me, to notice every detail I had ignored before, every expression, every remark. His mother walked into the kitchen, looked at the breakfast spread, and said, without even glancing at me, "The parathas look too thick. You still haven't learned? Girls these days have no skill." I waited for the pain to stab my heart again, but surprisingly, it didn't. Instead, I found myself quietly observing her, how she needed to criticize someone to feel powerful, how she needed to point out flaws to feel in control of this house. But the real shift happened when Hamza walked in. He looked tired. Tired of tension, tired of choosing sides, tired of pretending everything was fine. But the moment his mother complained, "See? I told you she can't do simple things," he simply nodded. Not a word to defend me, not even an attempt. For the first time, instead of crying inside, something in me went quiet. A strange, calm quiet. I realized that maybe I had expected too much from him, expected understanding, expected protection, expected partnership. But expectations are the heaviest things in a marriage, especially when you're the only one carrying them. The day passed normally, or at least normal for this house, his mother criticizing, his sister messaging him little complaints about me, and Hamza pretending all of it was harmless. But inside me, a storm was forming. I could feel it. Late that evening, I decided to step out to the grocery store. I needed air, real air, not the suffocating atmosphere of that house. When I returned, I found Hamza in the living room, pacing. He looked upset. "Where were you?" he asked. "Grocery store," I replied calmly. "You should have told me." Emmy got worried. I felt a sudden urge to laugh. Worried? The same woman who didn't even notice if I ate lunch? But I stayed calm. "Hamza, I'm an adult. I stepped out for 10 minutes. He rubbed his forehead and said, "You know how they are. You should adjust." There it was again. That one word, adjust. The word women are expected to swallow like medicine, no matter how bitter it tastes. The word that demands sacrifice without giving anything in return. I sat down on the sofa and looked at him seriously. "Hamza, how long do you expect me to keep adjusting? How long do you think I can continue living like this?" He looked confused, almost hurt. "What do you mean? I thought things were fine." "Fine. That word was almost insulting. Fine for him, because he didn't see anything. He didn't feel the constant pressure, the silent judgments, the need to prove myself every minute. Nothing is fine, Hamza, I said quietly. Your family doesn't see me as a person. They see me as someone who should serve them, someone who should meet their expectations. And you just watch. He opened his mouth to respond but didn't. His silence said everything. That night we barely spoke. I stayed awake long after he fell asleep. I kept staring at him, wondering how someone I loved so much could hurt me this deeply without even trying. Wondering whether love was enough to keep this marriage alive when respect, support, and understanding were missing. The next few days only added fuel to the fire. One morning, while I was hanging laundry outside, I overheard his mother talking to a relative on the phone. She was laughing. Our son is so unlucky. Such a useless daughter-in-law he got. Doesn't know anything. Doesn't even try to fit in. I froze. Not because of the words, I had heard worse. But because she said them so confidently, so loudly, as if she wanted me to hear. When I walked past her, she looked at me and said, "At least you heard what I think. Maybe now you'll improve." Something in me finally snapped. I turned to her, calmly but firmly, and said, "I do everything in this house. I cook, I clean, I manage everything. Yet nothing is ever enough. What do you want from me?" She didn't expect that. Her eyes widened slightly. "How dare you talk to me like this?" "I'm not being disrespectful," I said. "I'm just asking what exactly will make you accept me." She glared. "You can never be good enough." The truth hit me like cold water. Not because it was new, but because she finally said it aloud. She didn't want me to improve, she just didn't want me. Later that night, Hamza came home from work. His mother immediately told him everything, adding her dramatic flavor to every line. She shouted at me. She disrespected me. "I can't live like this." Hamza rushed to me, eyes filled with anger I had never seen before. "Why would you speak to Mom like that?" I looked directly at him. "Because she pushed me too far." "You should have stayed quiet," he said sharply. "You know how her temper is." I felt tears welling up, but I blinked them away. "Hamza, do you hear yourself? You're asking me to stay quiet even when someone attacks my dignity." He threw his hands up. "What do you want me to do? Fight with my family every day?" I took a deep breath. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking. "No. I want you to acknowledge what's happening. I want you to see how I'm treated. I want you to stop pretending everything is normal." But he didn't answer. He looked away, frustrated, tired, unwilling to deal with the conflict. And for the first time, I realized something I didn't want to admit. Maybe he didn't want to see. Maybe ignoring the truth was easier for him than standing up for me. That night, I packed a small bag. Not to leave, but to remind myself that I had choices. That I wasn't trapped. That if things became unbearable, I could walk away with my dignity intact. I hid the bag under the bed. Just knowing it was there gave me strength. The next day, when Hamza left for work, I looked around the house, this house that never felt like mine, and for the first time, I whispered to myself. I deserve better than this. I didn't know what the next days would bring. But I knew something was about to change. For them. For Hamza. And for me. The morning after I hid my packed bag under the bed, something inside me felt stronger. Not happier, not lighter, but stronger. It was as if I finally recognized my own worth, even if no one in the house did. I wasn't planning to leave, at least not yet. But the simple knowledge that I could leave if life became unbearable made me feel like I wasn't trapped anymore. That day, Hamza left early for work. His mother was unusually silent during breakfast, which was strange because silence from her usually meant she was planning something. And I was right. By noon, her tone changed into something sharper. You didn't sweep under the dining table, she said while inspecting the floor, looking for flaws the way one searches for lost jewelry. I did, I replied calmly. No, you didn't do it properly. Your work is always half done, she snapped. There it was again, that familiar sting. But this time, instead of feeling hurt, I simply observed her. I wondered how a person could be so determined to find faults in someone who had done nothing but try to please them. When Ariba arrived that afternoon, the real drama began. She walked in with her usual smirk, sat on the sofa, and said loudly enough for me to hear, "Mom, you're right. Some girls are just not meant for family life. They only know how to look pretty, not how to run a home." I stood frozen for a moment. Not because the insult was new, but because I finally realized I didn't deserve this kind of treatment from anyone. I didn't owe them my silence. I put down the tray of tea I was carrying and said, "Ariba, if you have something to say to me, say it directly. Stop talking behind my back while I'm standing right here." She looked shocked. Maybe she thought I would quietly endure forever. "Oh, so now you talk back," she scoffed. "You're getting bold." "It's not boldness," I replied. "It's self-respect." Her mother stood up abruptly. "Enough. I won't tolerate disrespect in my house." Disrespect. That word almost made me laugh. I had been insulted, judged, humiliated, and blamed for months. And the moment I defended myself, I became disrespectful. I didn't say another word. Instead, I walked into my room and closed the door, calmly, silently. But my silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was strength. Later in the evening, when Hamza returned home, his mother immediately pulled him aside. I could hear her in the hallway, her voice trembling theatrically. "Your wife is getting out of control. She doesn't listen. She talks back. She is poisoning the peace of this house." Hamza walked into our room looking exhausted. "What happened now?" he asked. I told him the truth. Every word. Every insult. Every comment. For the first time, I didn't soften anything. I didn't try to explain it politely. I wanted him to hear what I lived through every day. But like always, he sighed and said, "You know how my family is. Why do you take everything so seriously?" Something inside me broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a hairline crack in glass. "Hamza," I said softly, "do you ever think about how I feel? Even once?" He didn't reply. "Do you know what it's like to wake up every day knowing someone will find a reason to insult you? Do you know what it's like to live in a house where you're constantly judged? Constantly watched? Constantly blamed?" He closed his eyes as if the conversation was exhausting him. "Look, I'm tired. I had a long day. Can we talk later?" Later. Everything important to me was always postponed for later. He lay down and fell asleep almost instantly, but I stayed awake. I listened to the quiet hum of the ceiling fan, the distant sounds of the neighborhood, and my own heartbeat, steady, strong, and alive despite everything. The next morning, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed with a message, from Hamza's aunt, someone I barely knew. She wrote, "I heard some things. Are you doing okay?" I stared at the message for several seconds, unsure how to respond. I typed and deleted replies over and over. Finally, I wrote a safe, neutral line, "I'm fine. Just a few misunderstandings." She replied, "Your mother-in-law has been complaining to the whole family. But I want you to know, this isn't your fault. She has always been like this." I froze. I didn't expect empathy from anyone in Hamza's family. Her message felt like a fragile lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't all in my head, that someone else saw the truth. But before I could reply again, his mother barged into the room. "What are you doing? Who are you texting?" Her tone was sharp, suspicious. I put my phone down calmly. "Just responding to a message." She narrowed her eyes. I hope you're not complaining about us to outsiders. We don't like our family matters spread outside. Family matters. So when she complained about me to the entire extended family, that was acceptable. But if I said a single truthful sentence, it became a crime. I didn't say anything wrong, I replied. She glared at me like a storm ready to break. I knew you would cause trouble one day. Girls like you never stay quiet. I wanted to say, I stayed quiet for months. But I didn't. I was done justifying myself to people who never wanted to understand. That evening, Hamza came home early. I thought maybe he finally wanted to talk. Maybe he realized how serious things were. But as soon as he entered, he said, "Mom is crying. She says you're being disrespectful again." What happened this time? My heart sank. There was no, "How are you?" No, "Is everything okay?" No, "Tell me your side." Just blame. Just assumption. "Hamza," I said quietly, "do you trust me at all?" He hesitated. Just a second. But that second was enough. "I trust you," he said, "but Mom wouldn't lie either." And that was it. That single sentence told me everything I needed to know. It didn't matter how much I loved him. It didn't matter how hard I tried. It didn't matter how much I sacrificed. He would always believe them first. I felt a single tear slip down my cheek, but I didn't wipe it. I didn't hide it. I let it fall, because it wasn't weakness. It was clarity. For the first time, I saw my life clearly. I wasn't fighting just difficult in-laws. I was fighting a marriage where only one person was trying. That night, I quietly opened the drawer and touched the small packed bag I had hidden earlier. I didn't take it out. Not yet. But I whispered to myself, if things don't change, I will. And for the first time, the thought didn't scare me. It set me free. The next morning, the air in the house felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was silence, maybe it was tension, or maybe it was just the weight of all the unspoken truths hanging between me and Hamza. He barely looked at me while getting ready for work. I quietly watched him fix his tie, adjust his hair, gather his things, ordinary actions, yet they felt strangely distant, like I was watching a stranger living in my room. Before leaving, he finally spoke. "Please try not to argue with Mom today," he said, almost pleading. It wasn't, "I'll talk to her." It wasn't, "I'll make sure she respects you." It wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was just another request for my silence. I nodded without replying. Because words felt useless now. Once he left, the house slowly came to life, his mother banging pots in the kitchen, muttering under her breath, Ariba sending voice notes filled with complaints, the maid walking in like she expected a storm. And maybe there was one coming. By afternoon, the tension snapped. I was in the living room folding laundry when his mother walked in with a sour expression. She stared at the neatly folded clothes and said, "You don't even fold clothes properly. Look at this. Who will fix this mess after you?" I had folded them perfectly. There was no mess. But perfection didn't matter. Effort didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. "It's fine," I said calmly. "I'll redo it." My calmness irritated her even more. "You're getting attitude now. This is what happens when girls are given too much freedom." Too much freedom? I had no freedom at all. I stood up, holding the folded shirt in my hands. "What freedom are you talking about? I don't step outside without informing everyone. I don't make a single decision without thinking about this house. I work all day and still get blamed for everything." She raised her chin. "So? That's your duty. A good daughter-in-law adjusts. A good wife stays in her limits." I felt my chest tighten. A good wife stays in her limits, but a good mother-in-law doesn't? Her eyes widened. I knew I had crossed a sacred line in her world. "How dare you speak to me like this?" she shouted. "Get out of my house if you can't respect us." Her words sliced through me. Not because they were harsh, but because I realized she meant them. She truly believed I had no place in this home. Before I could respond, she stormed into her room and slammed the door. The sound echoed through the house. I sank onto the sofa, feeling my heart racing, my hands shaking. For months I had been swallowing pain, but now it felt like everything was collapsing at once. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Hamza. "Mom is crying." "What did you do now?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "Are you okay?" Just blame. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then, slowly, I put my phone down. That was the moment when I truly understood, I was alone. Completely, painfully alone. When Hamza returned home later that evening, he didn't speak to me at first. He went straight to his mother's room. I could hear their voices, hers dramatic and loud, his frustrated and exhausted. Minutes later he walked into our room. "What's wrong with you?" he asked angrily. "Why do you keep provoking her?" My heart clenched. "Hamza, she told me to leave the house." He didn't even pause. "She didn't mean it. You should know that." "But she said it." "She says things she doesn't mean. You shouldn't take everything seriously." I swallowed hard. "Hamza, do my feelings mean anything to you?" He rubbed his temples. "I'm tired. I can't do this every day." I felt a shiver run through me, not of fear, but realization. "Hamza," I whispered, "what do you want from me?" Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. "I want peace," he said finally. Peace. To him, peace meant my silence. To him, peace meant my suffering. To him, peace meant me disappearing into the background. I stepped toward the bed, pulled out the small hidden bag, and placed it gently on the chair. Hamza's face changed. "What is that?" "My bag," I said. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. For the first time, I felt steady. "You're leaving?" he asked, shocked. "I don't know," I said truthfully. "But I can't live like this anymore. Not with constant disrespect. Not with constant blame. Not with the weight of a family who has never wanted me here. And not with a husband who always asks me to be silent instead of standing beside me." He stared at me, speechless. "I'm not threatening you," I continued. "I'm not dramatic. I'm not running away. I'm simply choosing myself, at least once in my life." Tears filled his eyes, but he didn't move. For months I begged for him to stand with me. For months I hoped he would see what I endured. But the truth was right in front of me. He didn't want to see. I zipped the bag halfway, then stopped. "Hamza, if you want this marriage to work, you have to be my partner. Not just their son. Not just a silent observer. You have to see me. You have to hear me." He still didn't speak. And in his silence, I heard my answer. I walked out of the room slowly. His mother watched me from the hallway, anger mixed with triumph in her eyes, like she thought she had won. But she didn't know this wasn't defeat. This was freedom. As I reached the door, Hamza finally spoke. "Wait." I turned slightly, but I didn't walk back. He looked torn, between his mother's expectations and his wife's pain. Between comfort and courage. Between habit and love. His voice cracked. "If I ask you to stay, will you?" I looked at him with all the clarity life had given me. "Only if you choose me to." The hall went silent. His mother stiffened. The tension felt like a wire stretched tight between all of us. And then, finally, Hamza took a step toward me. Just one step. But it meant everything. He wasn't choosing fully. Not yet. But he was moving. He whispered, "I don't want you to leave." I held his gaze. "Then don't let me live like a stranger in my own home." Behind him, his mother gasped, but he didn't look at her. He looked at me. For the first time. Really looked. "I'll try," he said softly. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't everything I deserved. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings are enough. I put the bag down. Not because everything was fixed, far from it. But because for the first time, he took a step. A single step that said, "I see you." A single step that said, "You matter." And sometimes, that one step can change the entire direction of a life.